Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to get right to some questions, but I do want to address something that's troubled me for some time. I'm speaking about the hoops that this committee has had to jump through to get the facts surrounding the murders of 4 of our finest public servants. The State Department has delayed and delayed coming forth with information on this matter, and when we were finally presented with some relevant data a few months ago, it clearly amounted to what many would call a document dump. Thousands of pages of paper in wide disarray and in no particular order, either in terms of relevance or chronology, making it very difficult to actually locate documents that were helpful. I brought this up with Secretary Clinton. She wasn't particularly responsive. You're welcome to weigh in if you'd like to.
As I understand it, sir, the State Department was asked for every document that it possessed which was relevant to Benghazi. And when we received such a request, we try to give out everything for fear, to be blunt, of being accused of holding something back. So this generates, when you have worldwide security efforts in something as complex as Benghazi, this generates many, many
All right. Well, it was
cubic feet of documents.
It was a total mess and not particularly helpful. Let me go on because I've got a limited time. On August 23rd, the State Department sent a letter to the committee which stated the ARB was, quote, very clear that the only people responsible for the lethal attack on our special mission compound in Benghazi were the terrorists who orchestrated the attack. These terrorists must be brought to justice. The entire U.S. government remains committed to doing just that, unquote. Now, no one will argue who was directly to blame for the attacks that resulted in the deaths of those 4 Americans, but as the ARB and numerous congressional hearings have revealed, there are other people who need to be held accountable for the fact that the terrorist attacks succeeded. But by the language of this letter, does the State Department really want us to believe that the department's bureaucracy could have done nothing more to protect our diplomats?
That was not the finding of the ARB, and the actions that are referenced in the August 23rd letter, sir, we are essentially reaffirming the findings and the recommendations of the ARB. The 4 individuals were held accountable, because they were relieved of their positions.
All right.
When
former Secretary of State Clinton testified in January, she stated repeatedly and took responsibility for the attacks. In fact, she stated, again, I'll quote, "As I have said multiple times, I take responsibility and nobody is more committed to getting this right," unquote. Do you believe Secretary Clinton has been held truly accountable for failures under her watch?
I think what the ARB did was take from the original intent of the Congress, which established the ARB, because the Congress and the legislative history.
That's not what I asked. I asked you if you thought that Secretary Clinton has been truly held accountable. Yes or no?
She said she was responsible, and I am not going to challenge her statement. But
where's the accountability, though?
Congress, there is in every organization, every cabinet department, every agency, in effect, a line of authority. There are people who set the policy, and there are those who then implement that policy or go back up to senior leadership and say the policy cannot be implemented.
All right, let me move on. Admiral Pickering described 4 the State Department employees as having, quote, failed in the performance of their duties, unquote, with respect to Benghazi. Now, let me get this straight, and I know this has been covered before, but I think it's very important. The only disciplinary action meted out to the 4 who failed in the performance of their duties was being put on administrative leave for a while, then reassigned to other positions within the State Department. Now, their benefits as federal employees continued during that time. Of course, they are going to be subject to Obamacare, so arguably that benefit is worse. And they haven't missed a paycheck. Is that about right? I mean, it seems like pretty pitiful discipline to me.
Sir, I believe that being an assistant secretary at any cabinet office or being a deputy assistant secretary at any cabinet office is a senior position of grave and great responsibility. To be relieved of your position in that regard, I believe is a serious
Finally,
act of
just
accountability.
let me conclude by saying that I think that failing to call Secretary Clinton to actually interview her was a gross oversight by the ARB and is really almost incomprehensible that they didn't call her as a witness. You don't need to respond. I yield back.